Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Don't you understand, George? It's because you were not born.
Film church.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
You're both out of your senses. This isn't worth a life, anybody's life. What are you fighting for? This shack? This little piece of ground? And nothing but work, work, work. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of trouble. Joe, let's move. Let's go on, please.
I'm going to do it in a minute, but you did. It sounded a bit like Divine.
I started to think that as we were going. I was like, this has sounded a little John Waters.
Yeah. Okay. Howdy, partner, and welcome to Film Church Radio. This is the podcast that treats cinema as a religion. It's Sunday. I'm Lewis.
I'm Brandon.
And we are here to talk about movies. Each week, Brandon and I alternate picking a film for us both to watch and discuss. Today, I picked the film Shane from 1953, directed by George Stevens, starring Alan Ladd, Jean Arthur, and Van Heflin. This film is highly thought of. It ranks on the AFI's list of greatest movies of all time at number 45. It's ranked the third in the AFI's best Western genre category and included in Roger Ebert's greatest movies list. I'd watched this a few years ago and had not given it a rating that coincides with these accolades. So I've been wanting to revisit for a while, and I recently finished The Five Came Back, the book about the directors from Hollywood that went off to document the Second World War, and George Stevens was one of those people. So it seemed like a perfect time to pull it out, put it on, and talk about it with me old buddy Brandon. If you want to know what we're going to be watching next week, listen to the end of the episode, and Brandon will be revealing it. Can't wait. Before we jump into the actual film itself and the other films we'll be watching this week, we'd like to say thank you to everyone who's been listening to the podcast and sending their love for the show. If you're new here, welcome. Where have you been? We've got all our episodes streaming on all good podcast platforms, so go and check them all out. We talk everything from Metropolis to The Apartment to Seven Samurai to Eternal Daughter. We've got them all streaming back there, so you can go and check them out. Leave us a rating and review as well. Let other like-minded people wanting the church enlightenment find us. That's what it's all about. And we are everywhere on social media at Film Church Radio, where you can leave us a comment and send a message about the show. There's some extra stuff on YouTube as well, and our TikTok is growing. So go and check that out and leave us some comments. We'd like to talk to everyone about the films we've been watching. Before we discuss the film, however, we'd like to sing the praises of other films we've been watching in our hymn section. But as Brandon and I both have seemed to be pretty busy this week, we haven't got too many movies to talk about. Normally we have quite a few. So what I thought I'm going to do, Brandon, is ask you a film-related question first.
Okay.
Because recently, this past week, I believe it was Wednesday, maybe Tuesday, was National Classic Movie Day. There's a lot of people tweeting about classic movies, what films people should see. And the thing that I saw a lot of is if you could pick 4 classic movies to show someone that wasn't really into classic cinema, which 4 would they be? And I think this is a great question for us all at Film Church Radio, because this is what it's all about, showing people films. So Brandon, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but what 4 films would you show someone that isn't really into classic cinema?
This one took me a second because I had to think about it. Because you said anything pre, like,
1960,
New Hollywood.
yes-ish, I would say.
Yeah. And there's lots of great movies, but, like, you know, even I, a film church worshiper, preacher, yeah, am like like I wouldn't say that those are necessarily my go-tos.
Yeah,
you know, because I'm also a filmmaker, so I'm like trying to watch like new stuff and see what people are like, what's trendy, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
But like, I should know better because it's like, as a filmmaker, you've got to watch the classics.
Yeah.
You've got to, like, no one did it better,
Yeah.
There's no one's improving on cinema.
Yeah.
They're just repeating it. But so I started looking through, and one that came up that was like, oh, duh, is Casablanca from 1942.
Yeah.
Which I only saw for the first time like maybe like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I went and saw it at Alamo Drafthouse for the first time. So that was awesome. Like going to see Casablanca for the first time in a cinema was really great. And I mean, it lives up to the hype. It's one of those movies that like everyone's like, oh, Casablanca. And until you see it, you don't realize, how good it is. There's a reason people talk about it. There's a reason it's one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really feel every moment of it.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, it's great. I should rewatch it very soon. Another one is The Red Shoes. Have you ever seen it?
I have, and I wasn't as hot on it as Scorsese is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know Scorsese was a big fan. 1948. It's a classic movie. It's a musical, I guess, sort of. It's a kind of a ballet. It's not really a musical, is it? It's not like singing. Yeah, there's dancing.
It's one of those where the music is part of the performance on screen, but it transcends stage performance.
Yeah. It's one of those movies that, like, the first introduction, like the first 30 minutes to an hour, feels like a typical story. Like, it just feels like a typical fairy tale, or not even fairy tale, but just like a classic movie.
Yeah.
But done well. Characters are interesting, story written well. But then, the second part of the movie, it, like you said, it transcends and goes into very interesting places that I like. It's very psychological.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Yeah, The Red Shoes, 1948. Nice. Great movie. And then two Hitchcock films that are my two favorites are Strangers on a Train and Rope.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hitch is the master. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Strangers on a Train was in mine as well.
Oh, nice.
I love Vertigo, but I'm like, as a film that is more of a crowd pleasing, anybody can kind of, enjoy this. Strangers on a Train is definitely up there for me.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
I would, yeah. Strangers on a Train might be if I had to pick the one film I would pick for someone to watch, to get into classic cinema.
That's awesome. And it doesn't really have, like, now what we would, bankable stars. I mean, at the time they were, but you wouldn't, your regular moviegoer wouldn't know it's Farley Granger and Robert Walker,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But the film is just so good.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Yeah, well, I think anybody who is starting to look can't go much wrong with the films you picked. Good choice.
Thank you.
Perfect. What else have you been watching this week?
I watched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Ooh.
It was good.
Yeah.
And I watched Volcano 1997 and sucked. But yeah, I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, everybody's been giving it praises. There's some haters out there, but I thought it was really good. And even the people who really liked it, their one problem with it was that the action wasn't as good. But I thought the action was like a step up for me personally. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't really know where those people are coming from, but yeah, James Gunn signing off.
Yeah.
Off to DC now.
Madness.
Bye. But he might come back for stuff.
Yeah.
which would be cool.
Yeah.
I imagine he'll come back.
Maybe this is just Kevin Feige's plan to get DC versus Marvel.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I mean that is the only thing they have left, really.
Yeah.
In terms of like beating it into the ground, and doing something that will bring people back after it's beaten into the ground completely, which is getting close.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Volcano was terrible.
Oh.
It's and not even like the good kind of terrible. It's a disaster movie.
Yeah.
And like, obviously those are kind of hit and miss. But I love a good disaster movie.
Yeah.
But it's just not. It's just not good. It's just not good. Tommy Lee Jones is weird.
Yeah.
In the movie, I don't know the right. I mean, it's a cheap.
Yeah.
Disaster movie. I mean, it probably had a pretty big budget, I guess. I don't know, but like, there's this really weird thing at the end where they like. There's like this racism subplot, and at the end, they like, okay, spoilers to anybody who wants to watch Volcano. The end of the movie, they like knock a building down to make the lava from the volcano go down a path into the ocean, right? And the building creates all this dust in the air, and so everybody's face is covered in dust, and this little kid is like, look, they all look the same.
Oh my God. Wow.
Volcano's fixing racism.
I really like. I've got a soft spot for these 90s like disaster movies. Like, is it Dante's Peak? I really like with Pierce Brosnan. That's a favorite, and Twister, obviously.
Oh, Twister is good.
Yeah,
I will say Twister is good.
Philip Seymour Hoffman is the best part of that film.
I forgot he's in that. It's been a while since I've seen it.
He's the best part of any film. So
yeah, that's true.
That's true. But yeah, 90s was hot for like the world's. What was going on? I mean, Y2K probably getting ready for the millennium. The world was going to implode. So
yeah, but they've been around.
Yeah,
I guess maybe they were big blockbusters back then. But I mean, there was like The Day After Tomorrow in the 2000s.
Yeah, and then The Rock started to kind of try and bring it back a little bit. We had San Andreas and Skyscraper.
Yeah. There was also 2012.
There was 2012. Yeah. Which is one of my favorite cutscenes of all time. It's in like some kind of Asian market, and there's a chicken that's about to be beheaded, and somebody says something. The chicken like sits up and looks at the camera, and goes like "what?" And then it just cuts, and that's it. And I was like, "What is that?" And I think about it all the time.
Oh,
yeah,
that's great. Yeah, that movie had. I feel like it had a lot of hype. It was like.
Yeah.
But I started working at a movie theater in 2008, and one of the things we had to wear on our uniforms was a little 2012 button.
Nice.
And it still took like 2 more years for the movie to come out. I wish I still had that button.
I know. Could be worth millions.
But yeah, I mean, that's all I got. So what have you been watching, and what classic cinema movies would you recommend?
Yeah. So the 4 that I picked were Strangers on a Train. That was, like I said before, about the Hitchcock film that I let in there. Double Indemnity that's my number 1. I think Double Indemnity is so good that it should appeal to everybody.
Yeah.
And then I picked It's a Wonderful Life.
Of course.
Of course. One of my favorite films of all time.
It's an amazing movie.
and then a bit of a surprise one, but Fritz Lang's Manhunt, which we talked about a little bit last week, but it's kind of just like James Bond against Hitler.
Okay.
Is the best way to describe it. But it's so fun. It's just like, it's silly and camp and like, but like still the tension that he's known for. And not many people have seen it, so I'm flying the banner for Manhunt. But they were my 4.
Heck yeah.
So, and now we're going to go from one extreme to the other. Classic cinema to non-classic, non-essential cinema. Have you ever seen the British TV show The Inbetweeners?
I don't even know what it is.
Okay, so The Inbetweeners is... Have you ever seen Skins?
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so Skins was this is going to be very convoluted. Skins was a very popular British teen drama. Very much like Euphoria, but in England.
Okay.
Inbetweeners is what I think of as the comedy version of that teen drama. So it's four guys like finishing up like the last years of high school. It's incredibly rude. It's incredibly like non-PC. They're just not cool people.
Yeah, it's like a English version of like American Pie or something.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. The TV show, 3 seasons, very, very popular. So they followed up with a movie. And then a sequel. So the Inbetweeners movie and the Inbetweeners 2. And I watched both of them. Inbetweeners movie, they go to somewhere on a holiday. And it's kind of like a good end. It's like a lad's holiday, you know. So there's like lots of stuff that they can make jokes out of. It's a good way to end the series. And they come back and they do a 2. And yeah, the second one isn't as good. They go to Australia. And it's, you know, as you would imagine, there's a really funny set piece where one of the characters poos on a water slide. Which is pretty much the kind of comedy you're getting. And I'm selling it short. Some of the TV show is like really funny. But the second movie especially doesn't quite do that.
So did you grow up like watching the TV show and then you decided to watch these movies that you hadn't seen before?
I've seen them a few times. Yeah, okay. These are rewatches. Okay. The TV show was on, I mean, it's probably like 15 years the first season came on, like a while ago. Maybe 10 years.
Yeah.
Probably 10. So I was like at university. So I was kind of just, you know, it was like,
just,
perfect
a little
timing.
bit older.
Yeah. And then the movies came out and I was, you know, we saw them at the cinema, watched them a few times. So they were rewatches, but
don't hold up for you.
Yeah. I mean, the first one's fine. Yeah. You know, it's more just nostalgia now. It's kind of like, and the second one is not great, but.
You know, a better title would have been Lad's Holiday.
Yeah. Yeah, the Inbetweeners is a little bit like, I don't know, doesn't quite fit. But yeah, so I watched both of those. And then because we watched Shane, obviously, which we'll get to, I watched another George Stevens film, Woman of the Year, starring Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy, the first pairing of them together, which means a lot in like classic Hollywood because they were together for quite a lot of the time. Even though Spencer Tracy was married, it was kind of like an open secret that they were together, and this was their first pairing on screen. And I mean, the chemistry is undeniable. It's ridiculous, like how much chemistry they have together in this movie. Very similar to Volcano. There's a few elements that now are pretty racist that are like, so the premise is she's they both work for newspapers. She's like a very knowledgeable, bright reporter that kind of can speak many languages and like encyclopedic knowledge of current events, and he's like a sports writer. And they fall in love, and will it work out because she's more of a man than he is? Who knows? But at one point he goes to her apartment for a party, and there's like lots of different people there from different countries that don't really speak English, and he does a unfortunate impersonation of a Chinese person, and then says some horrible things to a man in a turban. Once you get past that, however, it is a pretty good film. It's just hard to get past that.
Yeah.
Because it happens kind of within 5 to 10 minutes of each other. So just as you're like, okay, maybe we're past it, the Chinese impression comes out and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But different times. That's why you've got to tell yourself it's a different time. So...
Yeah, and I feel like that only changed within the last, like, less than 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And and it's just unfortunate there were so many jokes that they could go down, you know.
Yeah.
But it did, especially with the guy in the turban, it came across really, like, mean. And aggressive, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the thing with that kind of stuff is it makes it. I mean, all kinds of people watch movies, right? And it makes it seem like it's okay. Like if a kid watches that, they're gonna think it's okay to like treat people that way.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Yeah,
because it's coming from the star of the movie.
Yeah.
You know, the person you're supposed to identify with and want to be like, or, you know, or relate to, you know, or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. But I think, you know, that's the one thing about cinema is that it's not like we can watch it now through a different set of eyes and it kind of, you know, and you can focus on different things. So it's, it wasn't a make or break. I gave it 3.5 stars. It did bring it down, you know, in my estimation in terms of, you know, will I watch this again? Yeah. Just pure enjoyment. But I mean, you know, Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn are incredible together. So that was really fun to watch. And there's a really good, like, prolonged scene in a kitchen at the end where she's trying to cook him breakfast, and it's really funny. Yeah. Yeah. So that was it. And I gave that 3.5. So that was all that I watched this week, apart from our feature presentation. Shane from 1953. The letterbox summary reads, "The greatest story of the West ever filmed. A weary gunfighter attempts to settle down with a homestead family, but a smouldering settler and rancher conflict forces him to act." As I said before, I've seen this before. It was quite a while ago, and my only remaining image was the boy shouting Shane at the end. Jack Palance shouting
that was
Shane.
All you could remember from it?
Yeah, I feel like I feel like that was the thing that I remembered, just him shouting Shane. Yeah. Shane. And I thought it came a lot earlier. So I was surprised that, you know, it wasn't
like
there.
The end.
Yeah, until the end. But you had not seen this before, right?
Right.
So what did you think? How did you find it on your first watch?
You know, I feel like I've heard about this movie a lot. Like, not in detail as in, like, getting ideas of what it's about or, you know, the vibes of it or anything. But I just feel like I've heard it mentioned by several people as like, oh, that's a great movie, or, you know, whatever. And then I watch it and I'm like, that's it? Like, that was Shane?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I watched it twice, and I tried really hard to like this movie.
Yeah.
I'll say. I like a good Western.
Yeah.
You know, we watched, you know, the Sergio Leone series last year. I love all of those movies.
Yeah.
You know, Good, Bad, and the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars. But they're very highly stylized.
Yeah.
You know, and this I feel like is a proper Western.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But I don't know, man. Like Shane's not that cool.
Yeah.
He's like supposed to be cool. He's not that cool. And little Joey, the whole movie is just like, Shane, gee
Yeah.
golly, Shane. Hey,
Yeah.
Shane, Mr. Shane,
Yeah.
Shane. Like, shut up, Joey. We get it. We know his name. It's Shane. It's the name of the movie. We got it. They literally say Shane 90 times in the movie. I Googled it.
Did you really?
90. Yeah. Yes. They say it 90 times.
Wow.
Yeah. Just ridiculous. But you know who is cool? I should have looked up his name. How uncool of me. I mean, I know you got the names and the characters' names here, but Jack Palance.
Yes.
He's cool.
Yes.
That's a cool cowboy right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll follow that dude around. Let's watch his movie.
Yeah.
Because, like, and he's so much more stylish, too. Like, I don't like Shane's costume. It's too clean. It's all tan.
Yeah.
Like, he's got an ugly belt.
Yeah.
I don't like your cowboy hat. Does he even have a cowboy hat? I guess he does at one point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he's too pretty. Like,
yeah.
Like, rough gunslinging cowboys are supposed to be dirty.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
missing some teeth.
Yeah.
Like, who is this blonde hair, blue eyed,
Yeah.
you know, tan costume cowboy that's, you know, clean as a whistle? Like, he looks better, like, when he goes and he buys some regular clothes at the general store.
He does
And
say,
then-
though, when he buys those clothes, he's like, oh, these are the first, like, clothes I've bought in a while. So I assume that he just
Then
made
why is his other
those.
clothes so clean? If that's all he's wearing, it should
Yeah.
be a little roughed up and cut up.
Yeah.
Like, he's out there camping on his own. Like, yeah, find somebody else to look up to, Joey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And shut up.
Oh, poor little Joey.
Triggering some listeners out there right now, because I feel like if you're just like randomly listening to our podcast because you're like, ooh, they talk about Shane. Sorry.
Yeah. Hey, I might pull you back from the brink, though, listeners. You don't know what I think yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you feel about this movie?
I feel different. I think it's. I think maybe. I'm really glad that you brought up Leone, because there was a lot of similarities that I saw in it this time with Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah.
In terms of, I know that when we watched that, and you can go back and listen to that show if you're new, we talked about how it was at a time where the West was starting to become outdated, where everything was, you know, the railroad was coming in, so everything was being like industrialized and like building and building and building. And I think this is what the story this is trying to tell, is that Shane is so outdated now. Like, this whole like situation that they're in is kind of like the last situation that these farmers will see themselves, where it's like lawless. You know, when they're burying Stonewall and they're like, we're going to have a school over there and this over here, that like the town is going to grow from this point.
Yeah.
And Shane is just, he's not part of it anymore. He's not part of the West that he was a part of, is dead.
Yeah.
And he kind of just, that's why he rides off at the end. And the other thing that I, you know, obviously reading the book about George Stevens going off to war and coming back, there was a lot in there about like, that I could see from that book. In terms of like the gunplay was like downplayed. It wasn't, you know, just shooting off into the distance while riding horses. You know, it was very thought out and kind of like guns kill people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I liked. a lot.
That part of it was surprising to me, because I feel, I mean, the film does try to paint like the Yankees as bad and the Confederates as good.
Yeah. It does.
In not a great way.
Yeah.
And so the part about like guns being, dangerous and killing people, and not everybody just wears one around everywhere is surprising.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, Elisha Cook Jr., who we both have loved. He seems to pop up a lot in the films we watch.
Yeah, he was in the Kubrick movie.
Yeah,
The Killing.
He was. Yeah.
What else was he in? Was he in something else?
Yeah, I mean, he's been in a lot. So he's been in The Killing. He was in Electric Eyed in Blue, which I watched recently. A little bit older. He was in Maltese Falcon. He plays these roles that he plays are always are just great. Every time he shows up, I'm like, I like this guy.
He's like the Gary Oldman. He just like has these little bit parts and kills it.
Yeah, he does. When he is shot and he just kind of gets like pushed back into the mud, I was like, oh my God, like this, it feels real. It feels like you've actually seen someone die. He's not like falling on the ground, arching his back, rolling around, 3 more shots to finish him off.
Right.
It's just like one and he's done.
Yeah. And he also flies back, which is the first time they did that in any Western, where someone like is shot and they just get flown backwards.
Yeah. So,
which everyone started doing after that.
Of course, yeah. Because before that, you'd see like people get shot off horses and they'd be rolling around for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
But the realism here, like actually, I feel works in its favor. But I feel like I was like you the first time I watched it. I don't think that I was that into it, but it did improve this time.
Yeah, I mean, I can see like how if you grew up watching this movie, you would love it.
Yeah,
it's
probably that thing where because, like, if you were younger and you saw Joey being like Shane, you'd be like, oh my God, yeah, Shane, right? Yeah. There's obviously something there, and then you probably carry that hero worship as you grow up. Whereas for us that are not, we're just like,
shut up, Joey.
Yeah, you should be going, Daddy. Like, he's the guy that's like actually doing something about it.
But he can't whip Shane, though.
No. He's on our side.
Yeah, what side is that? Exactly.
What
do you mean by that?
Yeah.
But like, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, like, I did recognize Jack Palance, like, because... he's in City Slickers.
Yeah.
Billy Crystal. Like I was looking up stuff about Shane, and Billy Crystal was like talking about how Shane was like one of his favorite movies.
Oh wow.
So it makes sense that he would put Jack Palance in City Slickers.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I recognized him from. But
I don't know whether it's because Metropolis is so fresh in my mind because of last week. But his cowboy reminded me a lot of the Thin Man from Metropolis. Fritz Rasp, who like follows the sun around the city kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just that whole, like his face and the, hidden by like the big hat and just not really saying much, but really sinister. He does strike fear into you when you see him, and you just know as soon as Stonewall starts walking towards him that it ain't gonna end good.
Yeah,
that he's gonna get him.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't totally hate this movie. I mean, I'm ragging on it. I mean, it had a lot of good stuff. There was a lot to love. Like the fight scenes are really great.
Yeah,
like I like the bar fights. Shane kicks some ass later.
Yeah. Take some names.
I like the tension of it. I don't know. It just, I think the hype was just built up for me. Just like hearing so many people talk about it that like once I watched it, I was like, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was Shane.
Yeah, I definitely feel where you're coming from, especially when we talked about Casablanca and how when you saw that you were like, okay,
Exactly.
the hype is
Yeah,
there.
it was like, oh yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, okay, this is why people love it. It's a great movie. But then watching this was like, why do people talk about this?
Yeah. I was waiting. Yeah, I was kind of hoping that something would come and really distinguish it from everything. Yeah. Yeah. Every other Western that we've seen where it's like, a lone gunman, gunslinger comes across a family, has to help them defend the town. That is pretty much like the Leone Man Without a Name series.
Yeah, it's kind of just I mean it did really well at the box office, which the studio didn't expect.
Tried to bury it as a B movie.
Yeah,
or
and I think
about to.
It probably was just right place, right time. It just hit. People just wanted a good regular movie, and that's kind of what it is. It's kind of I don't think it's a masterpiece. It's kind of just a good regular movie.
Yeah, yeah,
and like. And sometimes like that's what people want and what people need in their lives. They don't need like all the overly preachy, overly complicated, overly political, whatever. They just want like, oh, this family is struggling and they need help. Here's a guy who comes in and helps them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there were several things that stood out to me in the movie. Well, one it kind of gave me Seven Samurai vibes because it's like, these people out in the middle of nowhere farming, and these bad people are trying to like take over their land. Yeah, and they know when they're coming, and like this one guy's trying to protect them. The dinner scene when they're like first feeding Shane, and he like eats a whole meal. And then, what's her name, Marion?
Yeah.
Just, like, gives him a whole, like, quarter of the pie.
Yeah.
I was like, good Lord. That's so much pie. But I guess he's a...
he's a hungry cowboy. Cowpoke. Yeah. He needs that food. Yeah. He needs fattening up.
And there was a couple of the lines in the movie that kind of made me chuckle because like language has evolved.
Yeah.
That like the way that what people said back then has a different meaning when you say it now. And like it made me laugh when the guy's like, we make out all right. We make out, don't we, Mary? And she's like, of course.
Yeah.
And then the same thing at the end when Shane is like talking to Joey and he's like, grow up to be strong and straight.
Yeah.
And of course he doesn't mean like sex. He just means like,
Yeah. Straight shooting.
The straight and narrow, yeah.
Yeah.
But Joey also, like little Joey, looks like a doll. In some shots, like he looks like a little porcelain doll. It's very weird.
Yeah, it is,
and I don't like it.
No,
I don't really like the casting of this movie. I feel like it would have been, mainly Shane and little Joey. I guess everybody else I like.
Yeah,
because I feel like Shane should have been, and he could have been. It's not that their acting was bad.
No,
it's just I don't know. The characters were just bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Shane just didn't seem like a real person. It was like the white savior kind of thing. Just imaginary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe you could interpret the movie like that. Maybe it was maybe Shane's an angel,
Yeah. Maybe.
Sent by God, And then they all three love him immediately.
Yeah.
They're all three just infatuated with him.
Yeah.
Just like literally just like.
I do want to talk about Marion's infatuation with him.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. There's so much sexual tension between the two characters.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And then I'm like, okay, she's been stuck on this farm for God knows how long. with Stonewall.
Married to the same man for 10 years.
Yeah. The locals aren't, anything to look at. And then you get blonde-haired, blue-eyed Alan Ladd show up on a horse. And of course she's titillated. She's like, okay, great. There's that very weird scene where he kind of leaves the meeting and he's just standing outside Joey's window in the rain. Yeah. And she like opens the window and Joey's like, Shane. She's like, okay, be quiet. Mummy's trying to have a moment with Shane.
Yeah, and then there's the scene where they're like, she's like cleaning up his wounds or whatever at the table, and then the dad, Mr. Joe, leaves, and then is little Joey like, Mom, I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
And they go in the room and he's like, I just love Shane. He's so good. It's just like, and then Shane leaves, and then she watches him out the window, and then Mr. Joe comes back out. He's like, what's going on here? And she's like, hold me and don't say anything.
Yeah.
Don't speak.
There's the scene where Shane's showing Joey how to shoot the guns, and she comes out and she's dressed. I mean, Joe says that she's dressed in her wedding dress, but I think it's just like her best dress.
Yeah.
And that's how I interpret it anyway. And I'm like, she is dressing up for Shane. She is like, I'm not going to do anything about it, but we're both attracted to each other.
Yeah.
I
thought that there would be, I mean, obviously Shane and Joe, they have a showdown, but it's not over her.
No.
Which like, you kind of expected it to go there maybe at some point, especially when they have that dance,
Yeah. Because I think Joe's all for like, when he's about to go off and, go to the saloon and kind of have that talk, he's like, I know you'll be well taken care of. And it's kind of like,
right?
Shane's going to marry you. And you're going to be pretty happy about it, I'm pretty sure. There's like a very kind of gentleman's agreement going on there in terms of Shane's going to take my place, which is where I thought it was going. That he would die and then Shane would be like, well, guess this is my family now.
So what do you think happens after Shane leaves? Because the last time you see Marion and Joe is when Joe's like all beat up and like trying to wake up from his knockout.
Yeah.
You think he's just like, damn it, I wanted to die.
Yeah.
Miserable. We're both miserable.
I think that, for the rest of their life, she'll accidentally call him Shane every now and again. And it'll just send him into a month.
She'll be like, what will they think of next? Oh, look, they have hair dye and hair straightener.
Yeah.
She buys him like a Shane costume.
Yeah. 1 second. I'm talking to Brandon. I'm working right now. You should be in bed. Because it's bedtime.
She's like, are you talking about Shane?
Yeah. I love Shane. He's outside my window right now in the rain.
You're like, be quiet. I'm trying to do a podcast.
Oh man. So Marion's relationship with Shane is very strange. I do feel for Joe. Like his little boy idolizes somebody else. His wife's in love with him. He can't even like be a man and go and protect his land without Shane stepping in. If I was Joe, I'd be like, thank God he's gone. He got that stump up. He's killed the bad guys. I'm good. That's what
moving
I needed.
on. Now I can be the mayor or the marshal or the whatever he wants to be, the pastor of their church.
Yeah. Probably.
Back to being the leader.
That's right. Oh man. But who was supposed to play Shane? And it's linked to another film that we've watched on the show.
Who?
Montgomery Clift, who was supposed to play the writer in Sunset Boulevard.
Is he... What else is he in?
He was in A Place in the Sun, which is my personal favourite of George Stevens films.
Okay.
He's been in a lot of other stuff. I think when you, if you had you know who he is, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, he looks familiar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't place him in a film in my head. Is he? Do you think he would have been better?
I think he would have been really good.
Yeah.
I think he would have played into the more outcast more than Alan Ladd does.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't feel like what is Shane's backstory?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't... Like, I noticed he had a wedding ring on. So did he, like, get his family killed because he's, like, a gun-toting cowboy and a gunslinger, and he got his family killed or something?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on there? I don't need to know.
No. Yeah.
But, like, I don't get the vibe that he's this, rough, tough cowboy, which I think you're supposed to get, but it's not necessarily a bad thing but I'm not as excited by the ending as I feel like I should be. Like, when he kills everyone, I'm not like,
yeah,
yay,
yeah.
Yeah. I'm not like, oh, thank God. I'm like,
yeah. I think the only clues we get
go back to being annoying.
I think the only clues we get are that he's very on edge. Like, he's always reaching for his gun when a noise goes off. So it's like his whole life has been kind of on the edge, potentially. Like, he's always ready to go. But yeah, he just kind of just settles in with his family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is Shane apart from outdated? Yeah, he's a weird character, especially seeing as, the film is called Shane. It's said 90 times. Like, I know what you mean. You're expecting like Citizen Kane in terms of like the character, bigger than the film and like just a huge person. Because the film that it makes me think a lot about is The Searchers, which came out 3 years after, and John Wayne plays this very outcast, like outdated cowboy in that. But I feel like that representation is just so much more complex than this.
Yeah.
You get more of a backstory with him. He's still got ties to family and stuff, but he's not part of this new generation anymore.
Yeah, because like Shane doesn't. I mean, yeah, he helps the family, but like he doesn't grow himself.
No, I think he just realizes that he's not fitting in anywhere.
Yeah,
like he's just going to go off somewhere quiet and die, I assume.
Good.
Shane 2, back from the dead to claim the wife.
I'm kidding about that. But like, yeah, I mean, he doesn't, there's no development. There's no character development at all.
No.
It's just like, and I get what they were trying to do, where he's like trying to change. He's trying to, he's trying not to use his gun. He's trying not to show off it. He's trying not to fight.
Yeah.
Because that's like who he is or whatever. But then he ultimately has to help the family. But like that part of it was not. It just did not progress well to me. I get it, but it's not. But only because I'm like a writer, I feel like, or like because I'm paying attention to that. I don't know. I just didn't feel it.
No.
The connection. But obviously it worked for a lot of people. So like, who am I to judge?
Yeah. I mean, there was, I really enjoyed it. And like the things that we spoke about, like the sexual tension between Shane and Marion and the, like him feeling outdated and not fitting in really, I really liked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when he says, "Are you speaking to me?" When he says, "Are you speaking to me?" Apparently that Robert De Niro took that for Taxi Driver.
Yeah. Because it's pretty much verbatim. He says, "Are you speaking to me?" And then doesn't he follow it by saying there's no one else around?
Yeah, I don't see no one else standing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as you hear those, like, 3 words, you're like, a taxi driver.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously Robert De Niro likes this movie.
Yeah.
Because he improvised that in Taxi Driver.
Jean Arthur came out of semi-retirement to work with George Stevens again. And then this is her last performance, like credited performance.
Really?
Yeah.
She doesn't even seem that old. But
I think approaching 50s, maybe, late 40s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said a few weeks ago, Jean Arthur, I've really grown to like recently. I feel like before the only exposure I had to her was in A Foreign Affair, where she plays a very tightly wound American diplomat. And I feel like my thought of her as an actress is based on that performance. And recently, I've watched a lot more where she's like been a lot better. I don't think this role is great, but I don't think any females can really excel in westerns.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a genre that's kind of famous for giving women great roles, unfortunately.
Yeah. They're always just like,
yeah.
They're treated horribly. I mean, even in this, like, she's just the wife. You know, she's not. You know, she's the homemaker. She has no authority. No, at all.
Yeah, she's overseeing cooking at the general store or looking after Joey.
Yeah.
You know, it's just those 3 roles.
Yeah.
And her amazement at jam jars as well. That was interesting.
What will they think of next? Yeah, I was surprised I was also surprised the soda pop, like, that existed. But the westerns are a weird genre.
They are.
Because the western that's represented didn't ever really exist. You know?
Yeah.
Because, like, well, this is probably a little more accurate, potentially. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's still a movie.
Yeah.
And it's still the western genre. Like, because this is supposed to be, like, I guess this is supposed to be after the Civil War.
I would assume, yeah.
But, like, soda pop didn't come around until, like, the mid 1800s.
Yeah.
Which is also when the Civil War was. Or actually, I think soda pop was, like, maybe late 1800s. But anyway, like, but yeah, it's a lot of, like, the Western, because this doesn't have any Native Americans in it.
No.
I mean, they're talked about a little bit, but not really. And, like, you know, a lot of Westerns are, like, the Native Americans versus the cowboys, you know, cowboys and Indians.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm like, was that ever really a thing? I mean, there was obviously, you know, a lot of, like, genocide of the Native Americans, and, you know, I'm sure a lot of, like, fights, but there wasn't, like, the West, like, cowboys versus Indians. Like, that was never a thing.
I know. It's always been one of those genres that, in my head, I haven't been able to place it in a timeline. You know, I feel like it's like the Western and then other in terms of, like, I just can't, like, I can't tell where they are in terms of place. You know, I can't tell what time period they're in. You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's supposed to be that. I think it's supposed to be like that, you know, because it's not. It's a fantasy. It's not. The West isn't real.
Yeah. And it's such an American genre until obviously Leone comes along and just kind of takes it. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's such a, like, American output.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, it took over cinema.
It did
ever.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah.
in the same way that like superhero movies are now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that the older I get, the more I enjoy Westerns. When I was younger, I didn't really have any time for them, but now I'm really, I'm enjoying them a lot more. It's more than just horses and gunplay.
Yeah.
Especially with certain ones, at least,
Yeah.
Just got to sift through them.
Yeah. I really want to go back and watch, like the new True Grit, the one that the Coen brothers did.
That's what I was thinking about True Grit when I was talking about the female representation here, because I feel like you come away thinking of the female character in True Grit.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have to pick it in a future week.
Yeah, just a few other things that stood out to me was like when Marion's like, guns aren't going to be a part of my boy's life. I was like, yeah, he really seems uninterested.
She's trying so hard.
Yeah.
Come and bake a pie, Joey.
I did like. I think maybe this is also why I like Jack Palance's character is like as one of his lines where he's like Stonewall Jackson was trash himself, him and Lee.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not wrong.
Yeah.
And also, and speaking of representation and, the West being a fantasy, where are the black people?
Yeah.
In Westerns?
Yeah.
You really have to think about that. It's like, okay, like hundreds of thousands of like African Americans were brought to America and they're not in any of the Westerns.
Yeah.
And all of these people would have had slaves around, like,
Yeah.
like that, because they're just creating an existence that is not real.
Yeah. I mean, off the top of my head, the man who shot Liberty Valance, John Wayne, has a helper who's African American.
Yeah.
Pretty much implied that, like
he was a slave.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, it's not. But I feel like that's, like you said, it's the fantasy of it. It's like the Red America's version of what they want their country to look like.
Yeah. Or like just trying to make like the man who just wants, he just wants his farm and he wants his wife and he wants to raise his son in a good town and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, okay. Mm-hmm. Well, so do all the black people.
Yeah.
So do all the Native Americans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like in real life back then, the white people were way better off.
Yeah.
I mean, they still are now, but
Yeah. Yeah. And it's unfortunately,
but it's just trying to make it look how hard they're working to make a good life for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not a genre that really leans in to that culture at all. Apart from the Harder They Fall, that Netflix film from a couple of years ago.
Oh, I need to watch that. Yeah, you told me to watch that.
Yeah,
I would like it.
Jonathan Majors is the lead character, so maybe we've missed the boat on this becoming pretty good. But yeah, I mean, that is a predominantly black cast set in the West, and I mean, it's a real good trip.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend, if you're looking for that representation, go and check out Harder They Fall, because you ain't gonna find it in the classic Western, unfortunately.
No.
So
not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought was funny was when what is like the villain character? What's that actor's name?
They all pretty looked indistinguishable from the other. Unfortunately.
Riker, whatever the actor's name who plays Riker.
Was it Rufus Riker?
Is it?
Well, there was
Rufus Riker.
There was two Rikers.
Oh, okay.
I think because they were brothers, maybe. Because Rufus Riker was in Paths of Glory.
Oh, okay.
Which I did not
recognize him.
No.
But yeah, that's who I'm talking about. Rufus Riker, played by Emil Mayer. Yeah, when the part where he's like explaining himself, and about how he like made this land, and we fought off the native, the Indians.
Yeah.
And Joe is like, there were people here before, and he does say some good things about like the Native Americans, I think. And then Riker is like, they weren't ranchers, and I'm like, what does that have to do? Like, like what?
I think that's just. I mean, I'm hoping that it's showing, how baseless his argument is, and that he's just got prejudice against them for who they are, as opposed to what they've done. I
don't know. And then the last thing I'll say is that scene that we talked about earlier, where Joe is like talking to Marion, and he's like, you'll be okay. Like his plan is to go and try to kill all the people, but he knows he's gonna get killed.
Yeah.
So he's like, you're gonna be okay. You'll be fine. But he's like, his argument is like, I couldn't go on living thinking I showed yellow. Basically saying that, like, he has to face them, or else, he can't go on living being a coward.
Yeah.
And it's just like this backwoods mental thinking.
Yeah. I feel like I might have an explanation for that.
Okay.
So, with Stevens going to war, I feel like the mentality of young men at that time was, I need to like defend my country. I need to show that I'm not a coward.
Yeah.
And go to war. Even though they know that they might
sure.
die. And I think that's it.
Sure.
I think that's the parallel there, is that he's going into this thing knowing he's going to die, but society has placed these.
That's the value.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's not just it's obviously he's been like brainwashed into thinking that like killing himself has value.
Yeah, it would protect their honor to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it might also have something to do with Stonewall, trying to defend himself when he got shot, and that whole thing. But I think it's in terms of reasoning, it's not airtight.
Yeah.
I mean, she's like, I don't care, let's move.
Yeah.
Like, don't do it. Let's just go.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
Well, one last question.
Yes.
Have you ever been in a fight?
I wouldn't say like a
Not a
proper
real fight.
Yeah. A few fisticuffs and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Same. I've never been in a fight.
Do you think that you would come out of it laughing like Shane and Joe do when they're in the bar? Because they take a couple of like punches to the face, and then they're like, "This is great fun."
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it would be do or die for me.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I would. It would take a lot for me to get in a fight.
Yeah, I think so.
I think to actually be like swinging, and if I was that angry, then it would also take a lot for me to like come out of it laughing.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
This one time, though, when I was a kid, I was like at a baseball game, and I think my older brother was like playing baseball, and so me and my younger sisters were like playing on this like playground, in like this little park area, and this kid was like picking on my sister, and I like was trying to defend her. I can't remember what I did, but like I got the kid's attention on me, and then he like held his fists up, and I just like grabbed his wrists And then he was like, "Hey." He couldn't punch me because I was like holding his arms. And then that frustrated him. And then I let go. And he was like, "Do it again." So he was like holding his fists up again. And then I hear my dad. He's like, "Brandon." And I like look over and he's like running down the hill to like break up the fight. But he didn't see the part where I was like holding this kid's wrists.
Yeah, he just thought you were going to get punched.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you're like Shane or Joe. You're defending a woman's honor. So congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. None of the
now give me a quarter of a pie, please.
None of the near fights I've got into, I think, have been as anything as honourable as that. It's just, being out when I was younger, having a bit too much to drink and maybe stumbling into someone. Or them
like,
doing it
watch
to me.
it.
Yeah. Oh, dear. Well,
a couple of lads on holiday.
That's right, yeah. Talking of which, I watched The Inbetweeners. Yeah, I mean, anything else that you want to say about Shane?
Shut the up, Joey.
Goodbye, Shane. Goodbye. What will I tell Mama, Shane?
I just love Shane. I just love me some Shane.
Oh, dear. Shane. Let's guess. We really should have set like a timer to see if we had said the name Shane 90 times. Just to...
True.
Shane.
Bing, bing. Shine.
Let's guess what each of us rated Shane, the Shaniest Shane of all the Shanes.
What a Shane.
This is the part of the show where Brandon and I guess what the other person rated the film on Letterboxd. I think you gave this 2.5.
All right. I think you gave it 3.5.
So, yeah. So, originally, I'd given this 3.
Okay. And you bumped it up half a star?
I bumped it up a 4 star.
Wow!
I know. I bumped it up to 4 stars.
4 Shanes.
4 Shanes out of a possible 5 Shanes.
I gave it 3 Shanes.
Wow. 3 Shanes out of 5 Shanes.
Yeah.
So that's...
So 7 Shanes out of 10 Shanes.
That's a good amount of Shanes. Yeah.
Not as many as Joey.
No, Joey would give this a 6 out of 5. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a film that definitely will grow on me the more I watch it. I think the more you watch Shane, the more Shane
watches you.
Yeah, that's right.
Through a window in the rain.
Oh, Shane. So, Brandon, what Shane are we watching next week?
We're switching it up a little bit. We're gonna watch a movie from this year. We're gonna watch The Evil Dead. Actually, it's just Evil Dead Rise.
Nice. Spooky.
Yeah, I'm excited for this.
Yeah. As a lover
I love
of the Evil Dead
Dead
trilogy.
Movies, yes. And not only is it a new Evil Dead movie, but it's produced by Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
So
Stamp of honor.
Good. Yeah. So get ready for that next week.
Awesome. Cool.
It's gonna be groovy.
Well, we've said Shane a lot this week. Let's see how many times we say groovy next week. It'll be a lot. That brings us to the end of the Shane. You can find the Shane on Twitter and Instagram at Film Church Radio, and you can follow us individually on Letterboxd. And Brandon is at Selman Scope, and I am at Walker Lewis 3007 to keep up with what we've been watching in real time. We also have all of our back Shane streaming on our good podcast platforms. Please leave us a rating and review so we know if you liked the film, if you didn't, and what you would pick for us to watch in the future. Thank you so much for being here, and we hope to see you next Sunday for more Film Church. The only thing left to say, Brandon, is... Could you whip him, Brandon? Could you whip Shane?
Don't you ask nothing but questions?
But could you?
Oh, maybe. There's no call for that, Lewis. Shane's on our side.
Oh, Shane. And on that note, Shane.
Ah, Shane.